But it's something that you're never gonna see. Everything that you hope for, yeah, it was only in a dream. Now I go on a roll and I know that I'm never breaking down. I control all the flow of my soul.
Hello, welcome back to Titan Talk Episode 3. This is Khyroe with Jango, and as usual, we have a special guest with us. So some of you may know them due to the analysis they do each week, for our league, and some of them may know them more for their extensive work within Titan Esports. But today that we have Mute with us.
Oh.
So, Mute, I've heard that, you've gotten a promotion. Is that true?
Yeah, they decided to promote me to admin, so he decided to bring in Khyroe from Crosspoint Origin to be the Divinity actor, and then we moved Don't Eat Bees to Conqueror.
Awesome. So with you moving to admin, how does the chain of command work now? Like, because it's kind of there's been some stuff change around. So I'm curious as to, how's that going to work? Does, let's say, someone who's a support main is getting griefed by like one of the players on their team? Do they go directly to you, or who do they go to, and when should they go to you?
I mean, people are always more than welcome to PMB, and if it's something that I'm too busy to handle, I'll direct them to somewhere else. But honestly, if it's something to do with your league, you should be contacting your league director as the first priority, and then a staff member if you don't get a response within like the 5 minute mark. We're posting in staff help for somebody to really help you. So
All right. Well, so with you being the new director, so like, what's your responsibilities going to be here at Titan Sports?
well, right now, obviously, we just basically revamped the entire league this split. We're basically already looking to the future for the spring league and maybe getting this Valorant league kind of set up. But we're basically planning how we want to do going about with implementing different league structures for this spring, since these two leagues were a little bit longer than we wanted them to be. Maybe kind of instead of doing like a weekly league structure, we'll do like a kind of like a tournament style in addition to kind of like a weekly league structure to kind of the best of both worlds for teams that maybe just want to be participating for a few weeks rather than commit for an 8 to 10 week period. And then basically just kind of keeping things running smoothly in the Discord.
So what I'm hearing is that nothing's really changing this split. Like, the chain of command's still there, and obviously you explain who you need to go to for what reasons. This is just more of us looking towards the future and setting up the infrastructure for that.
Yeah, the only big changes people should be expecting coming from this split is we're probably sometime between next week and weeks 6, I think it is, for the Conqueror League. We're going to be implementing kind of a more defined scheduling criteria with how contract slash tag slash graduate players are affected to be eligible in the playoff system. Basically just don't want somebody who's tagged or has to do weekly games being a sub currently, where they don't have to do their 4 weekly games to be eligible for that week. To be consistently on the bench, and then come playoff time, they kind of just come online. So we're going to be strategizing and coming up with and giving back to the community kind of new structure for that to make sure they don't consistently stay away from ranked. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of why we made the weekly games mandatory.
Right. Well,
Everybody will get notified when we do that, but should be expected within a week or two.
Well, it sounds like you guys have been busy, and this has been a good opportunity to kind of, for you to glean and get to this out there for people, so that they are not, kind of surprised when something like this happens. Jango, what do you think about all this?
Man, I'm just here to cast the games and have a good time. No, I think it's really good. Mute has always been kind of more hands-on in the Discord ever since I joined 2 seasons ago, so it's really nice to see him getting the promotion. Really glad for him. Glad he can just continue to be hands-on and continue to do great things for our league. I'm really excited for just how good things keep looking in this server. I've only been here for not even a full year at this point, and every couple months there seems to be a pretty marginal improvement, and that's really nice to see.
Well, obviously, that's something that we want to work on going forward, is always constantly improving to make this the best amateur league out there.
And to add to that, I really definitely enjoy the teams that entered and signed up for this split between the Conqueror and Divinity team. Definitely a lot of members reaching out, saying they love the Titan draft tool, the website, all the back end stuff that we definitely worked hard to implement for you guys. So always kind of be community feedback driven. So I mean, if there's anything you guys want to see or changes made, like feel free to reach out. We're still learning this kind of ourselves a little bit, and yeah, we kind of want to just continue the trend here moving forward.
All right. Well, that's always good to hear. Always trying to get an update from our admins, trying to figure out where we're going, how we're going to get there, and that way, we're better prepared. And like he said, the more feedback we get from you all, the better that we have, the better that we can make the improvements quicker without a lot of growing pain. So make sure that if you have an idea, whether it be anything from the podcast all the way up to like, something that you want to see done or maybe a different type of game, then, reach out to the staff and we'd be happy to take it into consideration. But I think that's enough housekeeping right now. We're going to go ahead and move on to what everyone's here for, which is going to be the power rankings for the Conqueror and Divinity League. Now, as a warning to the chat and everything else, these power rankings or analysis are from the perspective of someone else. So, like, someone had to make them up, so there might be a little biasm or deviation to what you may believe. And as such, you're more than welcome to critique and everything else, and even maybe give a little flame depending on the person. But we're not going to allow any kind of personal attacks just because you don't agree with their stuff. Just kind of putting that out there before we started. So today we're going to go over someone who's been doing it for the last little bit, and I think he has a valid perspective, which is Rabbit Swamp Donkey's analysis, and he does it primarily for the Divinity. So we're going to go over that, and we're going to give our thoughts on it. And we're going to see, and see where we think how close he is to what we think, and vice versa. So going into this with week 4 now, I mean, it's already 4 weeks, guys. The split's flying by. We're looking at the power rankings right here with what he's got right now, and he's got, TFF Aftershock, which is not surprising, at number 1. He's got Agni Kai at 2nd, Limitless Excel at 3rd, and P247 Foxtrot and SG Pearl at 5th, Clown Gaming at 6th, NSG Amethyst at 7th, Lower Class Gaming at 8th, Bucky's Troposphere at 9, Insomnia Rising at 10th, Big Damage Energy at 11th, P247 Echo at 12th, Oasis Supernova at 13th, and Dream Defeat. So, let's give our thoughts about this, guys, and see what you think so far just by what he's given. What's your overall impression?
For me, definitely a shout out to Swamp Monkey for kind of reaching out to me, asking if he was able to kind of do this on his own, and I'm always for people kind of giving their opinion. I think like I split in particular, we had about 3 people kind of doing their own power rankings, so I mean more the merrier, really. It's pretty much how the standings are right now. I mean, TFF Aftershock number 1. I think that's pretty obvious for everybody. They only lost a game to actually NSG Amethyst, who basically lost this week to their sister team. So that was a pretty much an upset. So I definitely think that was probably the best stream game so far with week 4 with the NSG teams facing each other. In terms of like anything, I don't really see anything kind of standing out in particular. Obviously, I haven't really watched any of these games compared to my analysis on the the Conqueror teams, where I'm actually watching the replays of the games. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair, honestly. It's really hard for somebody to kind of go in and rate teams overall because especially for him, if he's not watching the games too, he's just going by post-match lobby, and that can be so like you lose so much out of it, like with the team's like decision making, like your draft, like a lot of things you miss out on. So you don't really get to appreciate some of the things teams do well or really lack, and then you're kind of just going off a picture. And a picture can really only tell so much with a League of Legends games, as you guys probably know. So I think for the information he has, this is a pretty fair standing sheet.
Yeah, I think if I would, and again, re-echo what Khyroe and Mute have already said, we're doing a lot of conjecture. We have only watched on stream 8 teams play, so there is a lot of putting pieces together here. If I was going to critique this tier list in any way, my personal opinion would be that he is taking much more emphasis on the most recent games rather than all 4 weeks that we've played so far. Teams like Bucky's Troposphere, I have them higher up on my list because they have beaten, I think, 2 or 3 teams above them on the list here. Similarly, Pearl and Amethyst. While Pearl did take the head-to-head, Amethyst has beaten 2 teams that Pearl has lost to. Now, the kind of wrench in that works is Mocha Dog just joined week 4, so if you want to give credit towards that and put Pearl over Amethyst, I think you have a reason to. But I think there's a lot of recency. I don't want to call it recency bias because that makes it sound a lot worse. I just think I think Bucky's being number 9 is kind of crazy because I was considering them like a 5th, 6th kind of team. But they did get a from a match history picture standpoint, they did get pretty smashed by TFF. So that is why I feel like he's kind of put them down there.
At the risk of playing devil's advocate here, is it fair to judge Bucky's Troposphere, to be so low considering that TFF Aftershock has kind of taken the entire, league by storm?
I don't like for now they're number 1, but I think games like Limitless XL and even like Magna Chi have a good chance of beating TFF given a week. Guess I really haven't watched the games, but I kind of just knowing like the players, like Agni Kai, like they're pretty strong topside oriented, and then the P24/7 roster seems to be changing on a week to week basis, so it's really hard to kind of find what they're going to bring to the table. So it's going to be a lot of surprise factors, even when you're trying to scout against them. But I definitely think maybe they have like the easier side of the schedule, so that's why they kind of are having this undefeated streak for now, at least. Not to take away from any of the teams they beat or throw shots at the teams that they beat.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Strength of the schedule definitely plays into things. Taking Bucky's as an example, they have had to play TFF and Agni Kai already. They lost 0-2 to both of those teams. So that's pretty hard, but they did take a win against a different rostered P247 Foxtrot. And I think Foxtrot is a pretty decent team. I actually like that he's got them higher up in the standings because I think this team can be good once they kind of get this solid roster. But I think the core they have that has been showing up week to week has been really solid and just putting up very consistent performances, which is really what you need from a core out of a team. They just need to get those last couple pieces in place.
Hey,
And like you,
go ahead.
And like Jango commented earlier, with like how Amethyst beat like the 2 teams that Pearl lost to, but then Pearl beat them. Like that was pretty surprising for me for Amethyst to lose that series against Pearl. But I mean, like Jango also said, like the Mocha Dog like transition, like could just been better chemistry with the team there, and like overall them ahead.
I mean, Mocha had an insane series.
Yeah, he was really good that series.
Like out of the top 4 teams that we're looking at right here, they're all tied for first right now. Essentially, they're 3-1 as far as the records go. like what surprises me most is that I would pick Agni Kai to probably be the weakest out of the top four because with their schedule that they've played, I've not seen enough of them in games that would to actually give them like a second place standing. So like I would put them at like fourth and maybe P24/7 Foxtrot at second. You could make an argument for Limitless Excel, with the roster swaps and stuff that they did. But Foxtrot really kind of impressed me by like looking at their stuff by like them beating some of the stronger teams. So I wanted to one of the stronger teams. So I'm still waiting to see what Agni Kai does before I give them the second seed. I want to see them actually be challenged.
It's kind of like the
That's pretty
similar
fair.
things I've been running into with the Conqueror League rankings is so early in the season, so you don't really get to see a lot of the teams facing all. It seems to be a trend where a lot of the top ranked teams are the ones feeding a lot of the lower ranked teams, and then the lower ranked teams losing to the top ranked teams. So it's a little bit harder to gauge when there's kind of like that similarity. I don't think Agni Kai would be an outside of the top four team, honestly. I think in terms of sheer like average elo, they're one of the top low average teams in the league. I think they probably have the best top laner in the league, who probably is going to get claws by the end of the split. I don't know how he'll actually stay in the league, but I would definitely keep them in the top four of the league for sure in my rankings. Their schedule or not.
Well, for sure. It's just that I'm kind of holding them in reserve until I can see them actually do a little bit of
I see what you're
this.
saying.
So like that's not me tossing any shade to Agni Kai for anybody. It's just that I just want to see what else that they can pull out against a team that gives them a little competition. All right, so with the next couple of then we have like the big chunk in the middle, which is literally 5th through 10th there. And so they're all tied here. So this is probably where everything is going to start getting a little dicey where as we were stating, like schedules, who you faced and stuff, maybe an underlier here. So, what are your all's impressions, as far as like Clown Gaming with Amethyst and Pearl, Lucky Troposphere, and lower class gaming?
If I had to do a quick gut check here, I would say you could, at least it's easy for me. Probably not everyone would agree with me, but I could say you could separate this 6 group chunk into a top 3 and a bottom 3. And I personally would put Pearl, Amethyst, and Bucky's in the top 3, and Clown Gaming, lower class, and Insomnia in the bottom 3. I want to see Insomnia on stream. I don't think we get the chance to until week 7, because I have not been their stats and their numbers and their screenshots, like all the numbers don't paint them in a very good light, and I really want to see, but they don't have like a bad record. So I really want to see them in action, see if there's just intangibles there, see if they just play really well as a team, because statistically I look down on this team pretty hard, and those teams are always very interesting to me because if they continue winning, it means there's something more there, and I really like just finding that, not diamond in the rough, but that like upset potential, I guess.
I would tend to agree with that. I've been really impressed with both the NSG teams for how well they've been playing together. Being just basically made right before we opened the split up. Like I'm pretty sure they had tryouts like about a month before we opened the league, and then it was a lot of gold players trying out for the team. And it's really hard when you have like a lot of gold players and you're making like they made 3 to 4 teams with the gold teams in total. Really separate the gold players with chemistry and just finding like likability between each other and play style similarities. But both these teams have been really solid in terms of play and like coordination. Insomnia 2 has been like that. I mean, both like all the orgs with the sister teams from Conqueror League have been pretty good, and even like their sister teams in the Conqueror League are pretty much shown like strength of the org as a whole. I think I would put lower class gaming maybe like just outside the bubble there, just because of
Lower class is so weird, right? Because
yeah,
they started off really slow and they had an FF last week, so it's like really hard to gauge where they're at.
I feel like this is a team that's going to get better as the season progresses. I don't know how seriously they take like scrimming and the practices and stuff, but a lot of players that have familiarity with each other, and I mean, they have really good synergy with top jungle, and as long as you have synergy in some capacity where you can at least a win condition in yourself, like you're gonna be able to put yourself ahead as a middle of pack team. Really, if you're your top team, you basically have the skill distribution with the coordination, and kind of like the higher middle of pack teams will just be like really good being 5 together versus maybe having like 1 or 2 like single-handed like carrying players. And towards the bottom half of the standings, you really see like teams struggle with either like craft issues or coordination, or just having really weak points in their team, like with the solo lanes or just bot gap. And I don't think lower class gaming is a weak team. I definitely think they could be a top half team in the standings. Yeah, it's hard to judge when you have FFs and don't get to be seen too much.
I think we should also caveat, because I don't think we've really like outwardly stated it, that these are not like we think these teams, like if I'm rating lower class gaming at like a ninth, right? It's not that I think that they're a ninth place team. I think that the first 4 weeks schedule, be it how it may, kind of puts them there. I don't think they haven't gone through the whole round robin. Teams are, like you said, the NSG teams were thrown together pretty recently. Like these teams are going to grow. Some of these teams are going to start surpassing other teams, and that's when it gets really interesting. This is not like an end-all be-all kind of tier list. This is just kind of a week 4 gut check. How are we feeling about some of these teams? And like Pearl and Amethyst have a really cool kind of diversity going on, where after watching the series, I guess I casted it, so I haven't had the chance to rewatch it yet from an analytical point of view, but it very much felt like that Amethyst had the better cohesion and the better like synergy and shot calling, if you want to call it that, and Pearl felt like on an individual level they were getting a lot of outplays and a lot of just more 3v3 skirmishes, 2v2 skirmishes, and less 5v5 team fight wins. So it was a really interesting duality, and I'll be curious to watch which team ends up like outscaling the other as the season progresses.
And one thing to keep in mind here is that the meta may change easily within the next, like 4 weeks. So, a team that's placed 9th right now may all of a sudden start shooting up and peaking at the right time. Doesn't matter if you're 14th in week 4 as long as you finish first and at the end of the season. So I agree with you with the caveat and stuff that this is just us trying to look, and there's no way that we're looking down on the teams. The one that probably like the NSG teams were really good, but the one in this group that I really liked was Bucky's Troposphere in the game. When they had their game cast, like there was a couple of obvious mistakes that was made, but those are easily fixable mistakes. It's not something that could cause any major, it's not like something from like a lack of skill. It looked like more of their issues came from macro issues, and that could have been just who they were playing against.
Yeah,
I remember points of that stream, but yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
Now,
I think a team I'm going to have my eye on as well, just because I don't think we touched about them, because it's kind of hard to talk about them, is Limitless XL. They have been not very consistent with their roster, but I think they have just some key players that have just been popping off. And the one time they got on stream, this felt like one of the most aggressive teams I've seen. And that's just really exciting to watch and really excited to see. So if you ever see them pop up on a stream, definitely tune into that one. You're going to have a banger one way or the other. That team looks so fun to watch, and I hope they can kind of keep up the steamroll that they've started here in the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's why I like the implementation of like the scheduling feature, where every team kind of shows up on stream once evenly, and then basically the community vote for the remaining regular season schedule until playoffs. So a lot of times the community will kind of tend to vote for like a meme matchups, or just like, for instance, the Conqueror League, we had like the Flower Bowl that I called it, because we had Razor Flower versus Stunflower in the bot lane supporting. Yeah, I'll kind of give a sense of like who the community favorite team really is, and a lot of like playoff implications too. So as the season progresses, you'll probably get a better idea of where teams should really be in the ranking, regardless of their record.
Oh, for sure. In 4 weeks, like from today, we'll go back to this and see where we were at, and to see if these actually stand true, or some of the teams that we mentioned have actually moved forward or moved backwards, depending on the meta and, you know, choking at the finish line.
Oh,
But
Divinity looks very close right now. There's a lot of, it feels like there's some teams that are stepping up kind of above the crowd, and then there's this big huddle underneath them of teams that are powering up and teams that we expected to be higher than they are. And I feel like we could get a very competitive playoffs race, and then subsequently a very competitive playoffs. I think Divinity will be extraordinarily exciting come the later parts.
And another thing, I mean, the Oasis team actually name changed today to Oasis Lunar, but I'm pretty sure they're in a
fire.
Yeah, I really like it. I like the other one too. I mean, we'll probably talk about logos too, because I want to see what everyone's favorite logo is. But I think they're basically in a rebuild of their roster too. So I mean, the thing everyone has to remember is with our playoffs system is every team makes the playoffs. So I mean, because you're dream defeated and you're dead last doesn't mean you have a shot here. But dream defeat,
right.
you have no shot.
Let's go ahead
I
and move
think
on
the
to the
Janatops
last.
can make a comeback.
Please no. Let's go ahead and move on to the last 4 teams here, and then give our impressions here, which is, there's another clump here, a mini clump, which is, Oasis Supernova at 11th, P24-7 Echo at 12th, Big Damage Energy at 13th, and Dream Defeat, living up to their name, at 14th.
I think it's actually very surprising for me, at least, to see Big Damage Energy as far down the list. Just on paper, like if you just look at like sheer elo in a gold league, like it can kind of tell you a little bit. But again, like they're one of like higher elo average teams in the split, so I don't really know too much about them if they're like kind of new together. But play a good group of guys. Like I talk to Isodak a lot in the DM, so I like this team a lot. They have a really nice logo. So 420, and then P24-7 Echo. Like I don't know if that was a team too, because that org is huge, and they just threw players together and just called that a team. But they really just haven't found their identity, in my opinion. So the P20, like Foxshock's doing pretty okay, but I think they have like key parts of their team where they're just trying to figure out the other key parts. This Echo team kind of is very weak in all areas, in my opinion. And then the Oasis Supernova team is kind of going to be like a toss-up now, because they're in a rebuilding process as well, so we can't really have to look to see what they bring into the table in terms of new players and acquisitions before roster locks.
I think Oasis is very hard to talk about just because they are going through a rebuild, and we'll have to see how they come out on the other side. P24E is definitely not feeling great. Their victory came off of a forfeit in week 2, and then they've had 3 0-2 weeks. So they're not having the best start to the split. We're going to see if those players can turn it around. But BDE is kind of the one team in this clump that I'm looking at, and I'm like, is there more here? Because they have had a rough first 4 weeks. They have faced Agni Kai, Bucky's Troposphere, TFF Aftershock, I believe, was their week. I'm double checking. Yes. And Clown Gaming. So they have had a really rough first 4 weeks. And I'm curious if there's more to this team, if the 1 and 3 is very like disingenuous.
They face Limitless XL this week too, so I mean they're pretty much facing like a pretty heavy strength of schedule early on to the season. So it's kind of like the DC Phoenix and Conqueror League. Like I don't think you can really count them out just because they've been playing the best teams who are playing the best early on in the season right now. I would definitely not like surprised if they just become like they get on like a streak after like week 5 here and just kind of climb back up to that middle of the pack.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what's going to happen here. Like, there's a lot of wait and see, and it just seems like that. Like look at this. Like the majority of these teams, if they literally went, let's say they 2-0'd, and one of these 3-1 teams went, 0-2, all of a sudden you're in the middle of the pack. So you can go literally from 13th all the way up to like 7th. So, I mean, there's still a lot of time for improvement. I mean, Dream Defeat still has the chance to do it. I'm not counting them out yet, but I'm not holding my breath either. I'm waiting to see what, they're going to have to show it to me before I can actually, jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, everybody has a lot of polarizing opinions of DTF. But I will say my kind of, and this is very, very much a caster narrative take, but my take on this team is they become very scary because you don't want to be the team that loses to these guys. Like, if you lose to Dream to Feed, I think it becomes very, very memeable very quick. So they're scary in that sense.
Yeah, I mean I heard they took an inhibitor pretty early on, so it's kind of scary. But going back to BDE, a guy named MVP Showtime on their team, so they better start getting a little bit better so they can live to that name.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead, and I feel like we've been on Divinity long enough. So let's move on to the Conqueror League now. And obviously tell us guys what you think in the comments on YouTube or here in Twitch. We'd love to hear what you guys think as well. But let's go ahead and move on to the Conqueror. And so, Mute, you're the one that actually put this behemoth of a analysis together.
Behemoth. Everyone's been memeing me with how long these things have been, but I mean, honestly, it probably takes me like 3 to 4 hours, honestly, to do it over the course of like 3 days. I usually do it after I do my own notes from my real life job, but I've been practically watching these games on replay between 4 times and 8 times speed to like skip through like Crudder bit and then kind of just really focusing on draft and just overall pathing from jungler perspective since I am a jungle main. But definitely have been enjoying it, and I'm glad I did it because it's given me insight on some of the teams I disrespected a little bit with my earlier power rankings without watching it and just kind of doing the post lobby match screenshot analysis. I mean, it could give insight for other teams too, because I mean, I've been doing a lot of commentary on just like macro knowledge and just things like IQ, so with drafts and stuff. So you maybe will pick up some weaknesses with some teams with some of the commentary, but I try to be as unbiased as possible. Theme this week was don't pick Gwen. She's nerfed to the fucking ground, so please stop picking her. But and AP Volleybear, that's a surprise pick there from Samia Gaming. I actually tried it in a normal game and went 13-2, so I don't know if I can actually flame that build anymore, but it's usually a top Volleybear build only, but I had some fun with it. I think I act first and I had like 5k gold and 6 kills deep, so really fun build actually to play that.
Well, that's funny enough. You're talking about it took you about 3 to 4 hours to write it. It took me about 3 to 4 hours to read it, but all memeing aside,
It's a
yeah.
really low words per minute reading it.
Well, I was pooping, so. In all seriousness, I saw that in your analysis here, Mute, that you did a pick'ems and results. So can you kind of give us you scored yourself about 3.5 out of 6%, not including the forfeits. You said you're at about 45%. So why don't you kind of guide us through how you did your scoring system?
So I play fantasy football all the time, and big ESPN. Well, I hate ESPN now, but used to always do with their analysis board and like commentators, like a pick'ems kind of thing, and then track it through the season. So I'm basically just giving myself a full point for every match prediction I get correctly to the T, even including like 2-0 or 2-1. And then I'll give myself a half a point if I pick the winning team, but I get the games record incorrect. So if I picked like 2-0, but they won in 2-1, I'll give myself a half a point. And anything that's incorrect, I'll just be red and I won't receive a point. So technically, I got 5 out of 11 total points. So I got 5 matchups completely correct and out of 11 total matchups so far. I do have some comments for some of the pick'ems that I get wrong at least because, like, for instance, the Oasis pick'em, I thought they were going to have their top laner who basically carried them the week before on stream, but he's not a starter anymore, so kind of threw me off a little bit. But I mean, that's like, it's not really a serious tracking. It's just kind of for me, like for fun, just to see if I'm actually picking correctly or not. It's kind of like a little game, but feel free to kind of join in on that if you want.
Well, I'm kind of curious, and this is something that I may have to talk to, the people involved. But it'd be kind of cool to do like some kind of like silly bet to see if you can get the most correct in like Conqueror, and like Rabbit could get the most in Divinity, or you two compare Divinity, your divinities, and see what's happened, and then do something silly. The loser has to, I don't know. That's something further down the road, but I digress.
Yeah, I remember the old podcast. They used to do the 4 of them used to do a pick'ems for like LCS and the league. So, and I think they kept track of it. But I just thought it'd be something to kind of myself in line with and just keep a track record at least.
Well, if nothing else, this will either validate whether you know what you're talking about or not at the end of the season. So it's just so much. Excuse me. So it will let us know, if you're just talking out your hind end or what. So, let's go ahead and let's see. As far as the stream game, like your match analysis here, you were talking about. If there's, I feel like there's not a whole lot that you can really say since one was forfeited due to connection issues, like the first game. So we really only have one game to go off of. So I really don't want to say a whole lot about that. Um, Now I'm trying to pull it up. My daughter happened to close out my window, so pardon me, guys. 1 second.
Ed.
All right. So I'm looking at the league standings right now. So we have 2 teams right now that are 4-0, which is Crosspoint Origin and Bucky's Atmosphere. So I'm kind of Crosspoint has went, undefeated with Bucky's dropping 1 game, but both of them are 4-0 overall. So what's your all's take on these 2 teams right now?
So I'm gonna throw almost a question over to Mute, because as someone who has not watched every single game of Conqueror and just been able to tune into the stream games, Bucky's is curious here because I'm not sure how, and this is where I kind of want you to fill me in. I'm not sure if they should be like as high as CPO as far as like a tier list goes, because I feel like CPO have been challenged more by their opponents as far as just the level of them. Bucky's has had an easier, not like easy, but an easier kind of early schedule, and I'm curious if you think those are the top two teams, or if there's something like Hard Hat Zone that's still down a game, but maybe should contest for a top 2 spot.
Well, I mean, I do have Hard Hat Zone as number 2 and Bucky as 3. Watching these games, I think Crosspoint Origin and Bucky's are most complete teams in Conqueror right now in terms of draft knowledge, macro play, like just group coordination, everything down the line. I mean, like you said, Bucky's really hasn't been challenged compared to CPO. Like CPO actually the first loss from, I mean, like took the if Hard Hat Zone their first loss. I had them basically. I had Hard Hat Zone kind of ranked 1 on the first initial power rankings, but Bucky's with their games, at least from this week I watched, they make very minimal mistakes with their goal league. Like they do risk reward analysis so well, and just bleed teams high with their goal league and just like their win conditions. They'll play very strategic in sitting by their win condition and just playing it like to the T without really taking any unnecessary dives or plays where they may just like flip the game a little bit.
So then the question kind of pivots, like, because we haven't seen Hard Hat Zone or Bucky's on stream yet, if you feel like Bucky's is such a complete team, does Hard Hat just have like an X factor, or are they just a much more aggressive team and so they can kind of throw people off kilter? What's giving them edges?
So I give Hard Hat Zone the benefit right now of being better than Bucky's on the sure will of player skill level. Hard Hat Zone obviously is a team that plays through their mid lane. Marcel probably is one of the best, if not the best, mid laner in the league. And Hard Hat Zone basically play through him. Crosspoint Origin were able to basically take advantage of this and kind of bleed him dry by playing away from him and focusing him in draft. So, I mean, obviously that's a legit strategy to approach when you play Hard Hat Zone. This week, I don't think the team that Hard Hat Zone played really did those very well. Give themselves a chance to beat Hard Hat Zone, but I think Bucky's draft knowledge and overall level of play may be able to stop that from happening and having him taking over the game. But it's hard because I still give Hard Hat Zone the edge because they still played pretty well and they played stronger teams already compared to Bucky's not playing really like a top half team far. That's why I still kind of give the edge to Hard Hat Zone. They definitely are strategically beatable.
Makes sense. I'm curious what you think of Meme City and kind of the teams below here, because from an outside looking in, it feels like Hard Hat, Bucky's, and Crosspoint kind of have a pretty strong lock here. At least, again, first 4 weeks, they have a pretty strong lock on the top 3 spots, and then gets kind of wishy-washy below that. Meme City have had kind of a weird schedule almost, and I'm not sure if I can put a lot of like merit behind their wins. And then they have the 2-1 loss to Oasis in week 3. What was the other game that was weird? Maybe there wasn't another game. Oh no, the 2-0 on stream week 1 looked really good. So I found it very odd that they lost to Oasis in week 3.
I think they actually just lost to Oasis because of Top Gap. Like I said, Oasis had that top laner fill in that week, broken neck with the N and B kind of flipped over, and he just top gaps that matchup and just took over the game. Really, really like the Meme City team. I think like their logo is awesome. Like even their players' names are Swoon Typhoon and Swoon Baboon. Like call them like the dynamic duo in the commentary. I think it's really funny of them. Yeah, I mean they're a team that plays pretty smart as well. They played bye week this week. Who bye week has been. I mean, I have them last in my power rankings because they're a team that plays obviously through bot lane and then really are weak in the solo lanes and jungle aspects. But City really kind of put up pretty nice drafts and just played really nice. So it was a nice rebound from the loss that they took from the week before. I definitely don't think I can hold that loss too accountable to them just because it was really like a top gap. So man to really prepare against this guy, or it could be just like a learning curve for them, really. But not really to take anything away from Oasis Lotus, because they definitely, it wasn't just at top like really helped them like pressure away off the map and like help them win the game. But I mean, Sunflower and Whippy definitely had a really good series that game as well.
Oasis is a curious team. I think they're kind of middling right now, but I hope they can make big improvements because they feel like narrative wise, again, I'm coming a very caster angle tonight. I'm just feeling it. They feel like of a really cool like dark horse team if they can kind of ramp up and use the high level of competition around them to ramp up towards playoffs.
I mean, Stunflower and Whippy, like, basically transitioning from last split where it was more of a gold, really pretty much a gold league with, like, flat mixture. It was really heavily gold league by definition, and they won last split. So it was really nice to see them kind of jump up into the Conqueror League here, where it's all plat. And, I mean, they have chemistry together, so it would be nice to see them kind of do well. Bias for them for Hadley being a staff member, but you know, I wanna see my staff do pretty well.
You hear it first. You heard it here first, folks. You know, Mutes here is shows favoritism to staff. I'm just memeing. In all seriousness, I want to go back to one thing that caught my mind with Meme City Metro, and then we'll continue on. Is that the thing that impressed me most about Meme City? Because I saw that your comments here with it, and I agree with it. They draft so well, and they play to that win condition. Like I would say, probably 40% of League of Legends is how well you drafted in a competitive scene. And so I'm hoping that Meme City can keep that up. Some teams do it fairly, but it seems like Meme City, out of all the games, they've been fairly consistent at it. And some teams, I've seen their drafts, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But let's go ahead and move on to fifth, sixth, and seventh here, because they're pretty much they've got 2 wins. Radiant Storm has 1 loss though, so they're at fifth, while sixth and seventh here is Insomnia Gaming and Oasis Lotus. You already touched on them, Oasis Lotus. Mute, what do you think of Insomnia Gaming right now? Because I think that they're kind of, I think they still got something left to show us.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that brought out the AP Volibear jungle and really have success with it back-to-back weeks so far, and I really think it was like a meme, but like I said, I tried it out in a normals match, and I literally had 5k gold before my first back, so it's actually pretty impressive how he's able to really kind of survive these fights and just extend his lead with the squishy AP Volibear build here. But I mean, like I said in my ranking analysis, it really depends on what IG team kind of show up. I think they showed really good days and really bad weeks. I mean, obviously they can really learn from the good days and what they did wrong in the bad days, so they could be just growing from this. Um, kind of had them as like a near bottom, middle of the pack team earlier in the season, but watching them play and coordinate a little bit better on replay has made me want to put them more towards the upper half of the middle of the pack teams.
How has Berard's the 80 carries performance been? Trying to cast my mind when it was week 1 I saw them. They lost 0-2 to Meme City Metro, but I remember him just having a very solid series, and I haven't been able to watch him in any of his wins, and I'm curious if he's like actually keeping up and being like, I don't think they played through bot necessarily, but I think he's just a very stable rock that kind of always makes it to a certain point in the game, which is, a typical 80 carry. But I just had my eye on him. I'm curious if you have any opinions on him.
I mean, I think their bot lane is probably like the foundation of this team. Honestly, like I think he has the ability to play weak side, strong side, and he even picked Aphelios, I think, this week against AoE, and I don't think Aphelios is really that strong on the tier list, in my opinion. I know some pro play has been seen with her, just with the scaling, but I was really impressed. Like, he does what the team needs to do, and he's dependable in the fact that at least him and the support, they will not give easy kills, and they play super smart, so I think this could be like a dependable foundation for the team where all else fails, they know they can win bot side at least. And I'm kind of hoping this jungler actually is going to show us a little bit more too to this AP Volibear. Like I expect it kind of maybe to be banned, so I wonder if he has some other like crazy like kind of like off meta stuff too. I mean, if he's playing Volibear like this, like I would expect him to kind of be more of a like a J4 and maybe like a Zinzao kind of type player too, if he likes that play style. But yeah, definitely their bot side has been definitely the stronger part of this team alongside the jungle.
Tell me why you have just out of curiosity. And they're very close, so I'm not like looking for the big explanation, but I personally have Radiant Storm Rampage over Insomnia Gaming, and again, I pulled more from just the stream games that I was able to watch. But Rampage look a bit not Rampage. I'm sorry, Radiant Storm. There's 2 teams with Rampage in their name, so I can't say Rampage. Radiant Storm look interesting because they have a reschedule against the other Rampage team that they need to make up, and then they have 2 wins against Oasis Lotus and AoE, and then their loss comes from Bucky's. So this is a team where I feel like they could be right underneath that like top 3, or they could be pretty middle of the pack. And right now I'm leaning towards they're knocking on the door of the top 3, but you seem to be a bit just a tad bit lower on them than I am.
Yeah, so this week in particular, they had a really bad drafting and coordination, I would say, into Bucky's atmosphere. Obviously, a hard matchup for them, so I didn't really predicted the 2-0 for Bucky atmosphere, even though I made this the match of the week for myself. But I think everyone needs to really understand that Radiant Storm Rampage came in with it's a good Diamond 4 jungler, and noticeably, jungle is probably one of the more outspoken roles in terms of shot calling and all that. So, him being claused out of the league, and then actually a player that I played with on a couple teams as a mid lane skiz is now jungling for them. Can really change like the team dynamic in terms of like shot calling and stuff, and like having success early and then kind of being in a slump now, that also be pretty detrimental to like a team's morale and just like a chemistry overall. If like they're listening to the right shot calls or if they're making the right shot calls, like it could like really like all that stuff in the back of the head, like back in the minds of the players. So I definitely am rooting for them to kind of get out of this slump and then grow a little bit. Been pretty like the week before. I was really impressed with Skiz's like kind of aggressiveness and like just like initiative, and then kind of this week it was like a little bit questionable compared to last week. But I think they definitely need to work on their draft and then kind of like their win conditions for the game before the game even starts, and maybe that would be like kind of the first step for them to kind of get out of the growing pains, the slump.
Where do you think their mid laner Carbonetics kind of ranks up? And you don't have to go into massive detail, like he's fourth for this reason, but like top half, bottom half, like middling, like how are we feeling about him? Because he was a player that really stood out in their stream game to me.
So, I mean, it's hard to say game one. I think game one, if I remember correctly, he played Lucian against a Seraphine mid. I mean, Lucian's a pretty dominant mid laner, and like Seraphine doesn't really have that kill pressure that you would expect. He played pretty well with that. I would like to see him on more aggressive control mages, and then maybe see him kind of roam, because he is a very like knowledgeable player and like good wave control. But I think he really needs to kind of help maybe Skiz a little bit better with transitioning like the goal lead and just like 2v2 aspect of like following stuff. I mean, that could be just me biased because as a jungler, like, I always like having a good like pair and synergy with my mid laner. So I always play games through mid lane and converting like the 2v2 scenario and just kind of extending that lead to punish the jungler or side lanes. I kind of feel like Radiant Storm Rampage can be playing that style a little bit better. So we start with Carbon X and Skiz kind of doing stuff more priority with each other, and then maybe bring the support in the picture there too with a roam or two.
Good.
A lot of teams over like a good example I'll put in, and this goes for like a lot of teams in the league. Like there's a lot of like macro stuff. Even me as a player have like overlooked entirely. I was with Glacial Esports. I was lucky enough to have like a grandmaster, the China server, super server, coach us, and I learned so much in like the 2 months I spent with him. Little things, even like if you're playing strong side bot side, it makes such a difference to get that bot lane scuttle for your bot lane support to really get a roam off and like come back to the lane without missing too much because of the movement speed buff, and just kind of helping with even like poor skirmishes in the river if the disengaging or chase potential. Like yeah, it seems to be a familiar thing with the Conqueror League, that big thing separating teams right now is draft, and a lot of teams preferring bad comfort picks that are weak right now in the meta compared to stronger meta picks that I would say are easier to play. Like, I mean, I think
Xin
Ziggs.
Zhao, you can say he's easy.
Yeah, I mean, Xin Zhao is just like ridiculous, and then Ziggs bot lane just pairing with like an AP like an 80 like mid laner. I think is like a really good go to for a lot of teams here too. But you know, it really comes down to playstyle, and I do value comfort in a way, but comes a time where meta is just like so far ahead of the curve where it's like pretty hard not to follow it. But maybe that's just me being a meta slave last split, picking Graves, Olaf only. So
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next, set of teams. We'll go ahead and do pretty much they're all not. We'll do Oasis Slotus. We've already talked about AOE Team 1, Bye Week, and DC Phoenix. And you've already mentioned DC Phoenix already. So what are you thinking about Bye Week and AOE Team 1?
I think bye week actually needs to either change up their solo lanes or just. I think changing up their solo lanes is probably the best bet, or maybe getting a really strong jungler on their team. Because obviously their two best players bot lane, and they play really well together bot lane and get themselves early leads, but then they do kind of overextend themselves and then kind of just lose that lead, and then they're not winning anywhere else. So I mean that kind of just defeats their team as a whole. I mean, even like they're initially when this roster was like out, their Pinky was a mid laner and Zorobi was bot with Potato. So I mean, even maybe if it's a matter of just getting Zorobi another support and then moving Pinky to a soul lane to really help out team overall. AoE, I actually played with a little bit, like Cyclone. I played with a couple scrims trying out for that org a little bit.
Can I jump in on bye week before we move on?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Bye week is interesting to me. I don't know the solo laners enough to comment on them, but Kappa, Zorobi, and Pinky I have seen play before. And this is a team that, not to say I'm like rooting for them, but I want to see them succeed and especially grow over the season, because I think there's a lot of players that like ride the line between gold and platinum. And I'm not calling anybody out and saying like you shouldn't be doing this or anything, but there are a lot of players that kind of ride that line. And I think to push yourself into a platinum league and play against players who are going to be, for the most part, marginally better than you is a really good way to improve yourself very quickly. And so I'm looking at players like Zorobi and like Kappa who have been on this line for quite some time to take this and use it as an experience and to use it to like level themselves up by playing against really insane players comparatively to what they're used to. So I really want to see this team grow overall. I think they're going to have a rough start no matter what, whether their solo lanes were similar or whether they're a little bit behind. So I think the rough start is expected. I just want to see where they go from here.
I think to add to that is also like that big jump into a plat league. Like you have to have the right mindset to understand like, hey, you made this big jump, and then like that positive outlook where, hey, I'm gonna take like at least like 1 to 2 things from that game and try to work on that to improve myself. So, I think as long as you have like that kind of positive outlook and like the willingness to really go in and review what went wrong in a game, you can definitely learn so much in these games as well.
That's all I wanted to say on that. You can go ahead to AoE because this is a team I don't have a ton of feelings on. So that's all you hear.
Yeah, so I can't really remember other players I played with, but I definitely remember playing with Cyclone, and he was a pretty good player in the fact that I think his competitive level of play is better than his solo queue rank. Unfortunately, I think he's been kind of very singling out himself a little bit too much with his picks and not really expanding his champion diversity. I think he's really trying to make the Irelia mid work, and Irelia is like a super strong pick right now, but I think if you don't pair it in a correct team comp, like it'll be very detrimental when behind. Sure, they had like pretty balanced schedule. If I look really quick, definitely they have a rematch as well, like a makeup game with the new team as well. So I'll have to see that. So there's only really 3 games we can base them off, but took a game off Radiant, Storm, Rampage. So definitely think they have the ability to take wins off of teams, and then they have really good coordination and overall. But I think this week they just had a little bit of a weaker draft than normal.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Mute, as far as it goes to AoE Team 1. Bye week, as we've already mentioned, I think that probably their quickest fix is to put Zerobi back at 80 carry and find him a support that he works well with. But besides that, let's go ahead and move on. I really don't want to talk about Kosa Game and Rampage because there's only been 2 games. So I really don't think we have enough sample size to talk about them yet. We'll readdress them in 4 weeks. But let's talk about Monkey Hand Signs here, who seems to be a 0-4 with a 2-8 record. So it seems that uh, they seem to be struggling a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of need to apologize, I guess, if commentary seem to be attacking them a little bit, but this team in particular, they face Hard Hat Zone, which I said was a very mid-oriented team. Obvious how they play and their style, but their game, they basically did very little to control the enemy mid lane. And then, for instance, Hard Hat Zone blind picked Yasuo mid. They responded with a Azir, which is not really a hard counter to Yasuo. And then proceeded to basically get solo killed 4 times the Yasuo. And then game 2 comes by and Hard Hat Zone again blind picks a Yasuo. And then red side, they still pick Azir as their 5th pick. And then kind of like didn't really feed solo kills, but really just had no or pressure or just like wave pressure on the Yasuo. So that kind of is a big red flag for me when you're a team that kind of sees something that fails from one game and then kind of don't make an immediate change with it in the very next game. So that was kind of a big red flag for me. Definitely think their jungler is actually pretty good. Like I was actually impressed with his jungling overall. But I mean, it's hard to play jungle when the enemy mid laner is like hard stomping, really. So
Right. So
Yep.
it may be a chance they still have a chance of turning around and they may show us some more going on. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do for us. What were you saying, Django? I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, I was just gonna say it's a pretty rough situation to be in because they've basically lost to 2 higher place teams, and then we're only able to take a game off of each of the mid place teams. So they're off to a rough start. And I think their strongest players are in their cerebrals, in their jungle and their support in game. And I kind of agree with Mute where that's not transitioning to their out of game prep. And they also haven't had the best, I believe, track record with like having the same 5 players in every week. I think Destroy missed a week at least. They had to have an 80 carry sub top, so they haven't had the best roster work, but their elo is like not very low. So it's very surprising to see this team struggle. It's something where you just kind of have to give them time before we can really like think that this team is just a bust, because on paper they shouldn't be.
it's kind of like the situation DC Phoenix is in, where DC Phoenix is like, forget the top of my head which Divinity team was like very front loaded in the schedule. But they play basically the top 4 teams right now in the first 4 weeks, and then I mean they're 0-4, but I think they're going to be a team that kind of climbs very fast up the rankings and even the standings after a few weeks, and because they're one of the higher ELO average teams, and definitely showed some good things against even playing against the better teams in the league. But it's really tough to play the dogs who are playing really well early in the season as maybe a potential newer team. Like I said, I don't really know how much chemistry these guys actually have together since they are a newer team to the league. So in playoffs, everybody makes it, so count anybody out.
Nope. It's better. It's better to peak at the end than peaking at the beginning. I agree with that. So I mean, with everybody here, listening and people who's going to listen to this on YouTube, leave your comments. Tell us what you think. Or was Mute completely off, and he needs to have his eyes checked or whatnot. Or if you agree with us, let us know. we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up for you, everyone, because I know that we've been going on for a while. So we're going to finish off with some housekeeping stuff. Our next housekeeping. Our next podcast will be on September 22nd at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are always looking for more analysis and content and stuff. So the more that you put on the website, the more you put in the analysis channel. There's more stuff that we can include because we want to include you guys in our stuff and see what if you're smarter than us, because there's a good chance that you're at least smarter than me. I can't speak for my other two esteemed guests, but just we'll keep an eye on it. And then who knows, we may bring you onto the podcast to talk about it, especially if you've got something spicy and you can justify it. So we've also got some other stuff going on, and we're trying to be more active with the community here with you guys. So one of our own, Sammy is going to be doing variety games. It's going to be on every other Thursday. So for example, the podcast is on this Thursday. So Sammy will start doing variety games on the following Thursday. And then the week after that will be the podcast. And we're just going to alternate Thursdays for variety games. So this week coming up, he's going to be doing Among Us. So that means that if you have the game, you can jump in with us and we can play. You can play with the staff and you can stream it and you can just talk smack about people. The best thing about Among Us is you can tell how depraved your friends and staff members are. Mute will be doing a in-house starting this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I don't know if Mute wants to say something quick about that. Is that just going to be like rank doesn't matter and you're going to distribute people as evenly as possible, or you're just going to have teams that are going to scrim against each other? How are you going to set it up?
Yeah, we'll kind of figure out how many, depending on how many people actually show up and wanna do it. I mean, if it's more than 10, I'm happy to set out and even we get a stream going where we actually just do like a little 5v5 custom game. If less than 5 people show up, we can just do normals or ranked flex or something. But in general, we'll probably try to make the teams pretty fair or just a off roll, something fun. Nothing too serious.
Right, it's a good chance to play with people that you may not be on another team that you may like. Maybe a split down the road that you want them on your team or you want to be on their team. So this is a good chance for everybody to kind of intermingle, and that's kind of the goal of it. And for us just to have more fun. It's always great to have our league games on Sunday, Monday nights, but we still want to spend more time with you guys. So this is our attempts to doing that, and we've got some other stuff in the works that once we get it hashed out, we will definitely bring it to you guys. So just keep an eye on it. With the Twitter, within the Discord, there'll be announcements as that as well. I also want to thank Rabid Swamp Donkey for his in-depth analysis and follow-up. Some
Love
of
that
his
name.
stuff, I know, right? So I really liked it because one of the things I liked about it, even though there was some things I disagree with, it was well thought out, and he defended his points. So anybody can say, one team's better than the other one, but without any kind of justification, it's hard to back it up. And so going back to the podcast in 2 weeks, we're going to have a special guest. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. Some of you may love him, some of you may hate him. And so
It's
we'll
just
be
mute again. No, it's not.
it's not mute. We will be having the major back on. The topic is still kind of up in the air because I haven't fully gone over with it, but it'll be involving TES, and we may do some minor updates to the league, like ranks and stuff, and maybe a small bit of LCS talk for those that are interested.
Yeah,
And
spicy topic. Talk about if that baby was planned or not.
say that again.
So I got a spicy topic. Talk about if that baby was planned or not.
No, just kidding.
But
That's for the After Hours podcast.
Pretty much. For those of you who don't know the Major, he was one of the founding members of TES, and he's taking a break right now due to having a kid. So he's trying to adjust to life to being a parent for the first time. So that's kind of why he's been off hands right now. But he's really knowledgeable and he's a really great guy most of the time. So make sure so if so make sure to tune in 2 weeks. 4 weeks from now, we will be back going over our power rankings to see how well Mute has done, how well Rabbit Swamp Donkey. It's such a hard name to say if you don't know it off the top of your head, and to see how well they're doing. And if you have any other articles, like anything from how to ADC, how to wave control, anything like that, we're always welcome that onto the website. It doesn't have to be just power rankings. It can be anything else that's League of Legends or TES related. So without further ado, we're going to sign off. Thanks for listening for those who made it to the end, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Good night.
Night.